welcome. I don't know why that went there. We got to go here. There we go. So, welcome to the Glitch Geek Out. I'm going to switch this over. Oh, that probably sounds a lot better. At least I hope it does. Let me know if you're new out there. If this sounds okay. If not, tough luck. This is what we're working with. So, we're doing a quick impromptu Glitch Geek Out. And what is Glitch Geek Out? Well, Glitch Geek Out is your chance to ask those tech geeky questions, and we'll answer them live on the air. So you're at Glitch 2600. That's the follow sign back there. Sorry, we're fixing some of the setup really quick. We've been doing some remotes and had to do this quickly because I had to fit a workout in. And that's my new thing, is I'm rocking the bikes and beers. Make sure you stick around. We'll be doing a happy hour, our normal happy hour after. We're going to do a small break to reset a few things, and then we'll kick that off. So once this is done, stick around, wait about 15 to 30 minutes or so, and then we'll kick on that happy hour. But no, if you're on here and have any tech questions, now's the time to ask them. We're going with a new name. We're testing it out. So where we have been doing Tech Tuesday, and obviously today is not Tuesday, we're doing the Glitch Geek Out. Because then we can do it any day, and it's just really me geeking out and having a good time. And hopefully somewhat entertaining you guys while I answer these tech questions. We're working with a new set of layouts. As you can kind of see, we kind of went with a little bit more geeky theme, around the edges here as I point around, this little frame up around. We're going to be integrating more of those into the scene, as I work more of my camera magic back into it, and hopefully warm up and lighten up the camera a little bit. You can kind of see the fun light on me. But yeah, that's not looking too bad. It's working in the Sony as we do more stuff. We've been upgrading our setup, and with each upgrade means we learn new and exciting things to pass on to you guys. So if you are interested in live streaming and all that, just know we're growing all the time and happy to expand and give you that knowledge too. So like I said, if you're new here, I'm Glitch. I normally have my pop-up, but again, like I said, I don't have everything quite set up. Oh, what the hey? Here's one. So we'll just play that one. You'll see me as co-host. That's for my other one, but you get the idea. And of course, we would love if you subscribed. Obviously on when it comes to YouTube, the easiest way, if I can find it on here, is to click this little link there, and then you can also use that right there and come subscribe to us. If you just hover over that QR code, you can snap a photo with your iPhone or your Android, and it will go, hey, you want to go to that site, and then go ahead and click subscribe. If you're not there, you can just come and check us out on Facebook, and we would love to have you there. Let's make sure that's not doing something funky, since that did not hide. Awesome. Like I said, working out some new scenes and some new stuff that I set up very quickly and didn't fully test out. So as a geek, as a tech, we're always messing around, and so you'll see this stuff change. But this week we've been studying and looking up all sorts of new things, as people have asked us a lot of different questions lately, which I'll add as a reminder. If you're new here and all that, just put a Q if you want to ask your question live. If you're catching this on the replay, you can still ask your questions. Just put a Q, respond to this, it'll notify me. You can come to our page on Facebook, Glitch 2600, and send a message through and ask those questions. If you want to stay anonymous, I'll either say, hey, this person, and call you out and then let you know and we answer it. If you want to stay anonymous, just let me know in the message that you want to stay anonymous. Obviously, don't post it then on Facebook. Just send it through Messenger or email it through. And then say you want to be anonymous, ask your question, and then I will just say we got this question, answer it, and then I'll message you back and let you know on the episode. Because really, if for some reason you want to be on there, I'm going to respect your privacy. I'm a security guy, so it would be crazy if I didn't respect privacy or follow privacy rules, or what I think should be U.S. privacy laws, which is a whole nother story. If you ever follow GDPR, the European Union protection laws for their privacy, and we're just now in the US looking at protection laws and stuff for our consumer privacy. Really, we don't have any. Some states are starting to put some in, but we don't. And you have the forces of Facebook and Apple and all them fighting, and you'd be really surprised who's on what side. Apple's actually fighting really well. It's enough that I really respect what they're doing from that point of view. And of course, Facebook's a little bit more on the other side, but I can't say a whole lot. They'll probably shut down my stream if I go too crazy. Just saying. But this week in news, obviously, if you like streaming platforms, Mixer shut down. Or not really that it was shut down, it was bought by Facebook. So Facebook's gaming platform kind of took over. So you're going to kind of see the end of Mixer, but I don't know that that's the end all be all. It's sad for people who use that. But a couple platforms to consolidate isn't terrible. I think you're going to see a little bit more uptick on Twitch. And then you're just going to see more on Facebook as people are posting those, and maybe even a little bit more on YouTube. You get different audiences there. In fact, this weekend, I'm hoping to do a test of simulcasting to Facebook and YouTube at the same time, because they have very similar audiences, or hopefully you guys out there, some people like to subscribe on one or the other. And so we'll get that shot up and working in live there. But yeah, this is your time to ask questions. Otherwise, I just cover news and different things that I like to talk about, or questions that other people came in. So this week we've been doing a lot of work helping with my friends at Wine Styles and Beer Styles as they expanded. Well, they didn't expand. They already own the franchise for the one in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but they had some tech issues. So I went on site and worked on those. I'm glad you like the overlay. I don't pay her. If anything, I should. But for anyone out there, that's the wife. So, and the co-host of another show, our Hops one. So if you're out there, you can come see her. She looks way cooler than me. But we were out there working on the Cedar Rapids store, and lots of little tech questions and issues came up. From printers and a few other things. So working with that. I learned something new this week. I was working with something called an NVR, Network Video Recorder. You might know a DVR at home, a digital video recorder, and it's much like the same thing, but it's a security system for a business. Now, I've worked with some businesses, and depending on your budget and where you're at, you can get by with something like a Canary or a Nest, or what's the other one we use? The by Amazon, they not the Echo ones, but Ring. There we go. Ring's one of the other ones that they have a good security system and setup that you can do. That the important thing there is to think about cameras that have batteries, because the surest way, if you're running a business or anything there, your house, to get stuff stolen is that they could just cut the power and then your video goes out. So if you have ones with batteries in there, then you're less likely to have that issue. Bump up the mic a little bit. It seems a little quiet. So with that, ones that have batteries, pretty good. But as you get higher up, there's other ones called PTZ, the point tilt zoom, or pan tilt zoom, sorry. And that's what those allow. There's actually a company called PTZ, but overall there's different ones for that. And they'll use different types of cameras. So your home ones use Wi-Fi. They use your Wi-Fi and come through. Security ones can do that, but a lot of times you want it wired, so you'll get different types. You can't always run back what they call an SDI wire. Sometimes Ethernet goes a little bit farther, so you'll see IP cameras. That's pretty much the main thing that businesses use nowadays. So those come back to a unit called an NVR, a Network Video Recorder, which means it just has a little switch that controls them inside, and then a DVR inside. So you can pause, record, all that stuff based off security systems, and you can tie in your point of sale system, all sorts of stuff. Well, I did learn that there's a large market of knockoff ones, and I don't want to call out a company. There's a big security company here in Des Moines that did the setup, And we were working with them, and this will just show that you should do your own research when you work with techs sometimes, in that they said, hey, use this username. We're working on it. We're spending all this time. And I went into the logs and didn't see them doing anything. But then the username they were saying, it took me a good 2-3 days to find a manual, and as techs normally try to fight looking at manuals. But I finally found it. And the first thing, I went through the 400 pages. And of course, it's the last page you find. I went through it twice. I found one small section that said, hey, this one account works really good, network and local. And then the one they told me was local only, and we were trying to hit it from remote. So remote doesn't always mean outside of the business. We were even just trying to hit it from a register up front. And local only means you can only go to the NVR screen and type it there, not through their web interface. So we'd been troubleshooting this for days and found out all we had to do was go create a new user and password, which brings up a little tip. When in doubt, when working with any type of system, if you're having trouble with the logins, try a new user and password. That works even for Windows. If you're having trouble with your Windows system or you're having trouble with your Mac system, make sure if it's your login and your setup stuff that's in your startup, just go make a new user. It's pretty easy to do. On Windows, you go Start and then Control Panel, or just type Control Panel. There's a section for Add, Remove User. If you're on Windows 10, you can even just type Windows R, or just hit the Start button and type in the search, Add User. And you can just make a new local user. You can delete it afterwards from your normal account, but then you log in and test it. If you do live streaming, it's a good idea to do that because it can cut down some of the junk that's running in the background. On a Mac, you just have to go to System Preferences. In fact, I'm going to double check mine in the background. You just go to System Preferences, and then you'll have, if I'm blind, users and groups, and then you can create a local one there. That's, like I said, really good to test logon items or stuff that might be, if you're having trouble doing things on your computer, if something's acting really slow, if the computer itself is being slow. Now, don't do switch user, or don't do switch user on whether you're Windows or a Mac, because at that point, all it's doing is keeping your other account running in the background and switching you to another one. Do a full log out, reboot, and then log in with that account. That way, your files, all your stuff in your profile are strong and not being touched, and you're just testing stuff under this new login. If all of a sudden the computer's way faster, everything's great, then you know it's something in your profile. And there's ways to transfer stuff to your profile. There's ways to, you can make this new one your new profile, and there's ways to transfer stuff over. Your programs are still installed. If it's still slow and acting up, then we can troubleshoot farther. It could still be on Windows boxes. There's some stuff that's in startup for everyone. Macs don't really do it that way, usually. But that's where you can troubleshoot a little bit farther. Maybe you need to run a clean like Onyx on the Mac, or maybe you need to run a defrag. If you're running SSD, solid state hard drives, you do not need to defrag. Defragmentation is not the same for solid state drives versus regular drives. So back in the day, as we'll come back to hard drives. We'll finish this thought, then I'll tell you about hard drives. So with that, that's our testing for it. So when in doubt, web system, local system, if you're having trouble, sometimes just try creating a new username, password. It would have saved us a few days as we were following their hints, and then that got it up and working. At that point, we went the next steps as a tech. I punched a hole through their firewall, which sounds bad, but it's only for that device. They have a very specific dynamic DNS address they can go to. That just means if their service provider changed their IP address, and the IP address is just the street address to get to their computers there. So if you had to remember imagine if you had to remember everyone's phone number in your address book by just their phone number instead of their name. DNS, or dynamic DNS, allows you to remember that mom is 123 dash 8675309. It's not our number, it's a song. But it allows it to then translate to mom. So all I have to do is remember, call mom. DNS does that for the internet. So you know Google instead of knowing 63.127.13.2. That's what we set up for them. So they just remember their small word address as opposed to number, and it can map them through. So they hit that, it hits a specific port, and we map it through. That's something called port forwarding, and we can get into that on our glitch bytes, or if there's a bit. It's not going to be 5 minutes for port forwarding, so it'll be a glitch byte in the future. If that would interest you, say yes. Let me know, and I'll know to prioritize making something on port forwarding. Port forwarding can be handy for gaming. If you use Xbox or PlayStation, if you're mapping back through, if you have sharing set up at home in certain devices, it's a way to come back through. You have to be careful because you are opening up ports on your firewall, so stuff can be scanned there, but there's different ways to help protect yourself, and we can cover that. If that would interest you, just say yes and let me know, yes, that interests me. But let's get to the next part. So I'm thinking of it, hard drives. So there's different types of hard drives. There are spinning disk, data retention, magnetic drives, and then there's NAND base, which is solid state memory. It's the same stuff that's in your camera. When you put a memory card in there, it's not a big hard drive like you're used to seeing, right? It's a little dinky card, and it doesn't have anything spinning. It's not like when you take your camera and go to take photos, like you feel that gyroscope moving. If you were ever to pick up an older computer and try to move it, it's got a little spinning set of discs in it, like a record. And if you were to spin it and move it, you would feel some of that. At the same time, it has multiples, so it's not just one spinning disc. Think of a pizza, now stack, stack, stack like this, 4 of them going in a little circle around. So if this was spinning, there's a little reader head that goes through and magnetically writes on each of them, much like a record player head. So as it sits on it, that's what it is, and it writes little magnetic data across them. Well, because it's spinning, keep in mind, it's like a disk. Imagine if you write a file. So I open up Word, and it eats up this much space. Let's just treat it as a finite space. So if I went like this, and it's this big, and then I open up another file, and it's here, but then I write more into my Word document, well, there's a file sitting here. So it then puts the rest on the other end. Well, that's great until this thing closes, and now there's a chunk. Well, like a record at that point, it's now going, I need the file here, and now I got to come all the way over here, and then got to come all the way back, then come back over here to read it. So on a spinning disk, a non-SSD, that's not great because it's jumping around, and you don't want it jumping around because 1, that wears out the drive, and 2, it slows it down. So defragmenting goes, hey, this file should be back to back. So take that little bit of fragment, that little space, move these files together, so when I go to read, I can just read in the same spot instead of jumping around. Imagine if you listen to a song, had to keep picking up the head on the record and moving it around. But that's why on some of the older drives too, you'll see something like 54 RPM, 480, 440, or 4200, 7200 RPM, even 10,000, 15,000 for SCSI ones. That's how fast it rotates. It's just how fast it can seek to those spots. It still needs defragmentation. Well, the other one is built on NAND memory, so it doesn't need it that way. It doesn't work. Nothing's jumping around. Even if it has to go 2 spots, it can read from 2 spots at the same time. So there's nothing needed for defragmentation. In fact, defragmenting on an SSD only wears out the memory. The downside with SSD is that it has a finite number of read and writes, but we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of reads and writes. So unless you're running an intense database at home, which I doubt you are, you're not going to hit it. Even businesses, we put our stuff on what we call flash storage, which is same thing. And we put that on there for speed. It's way faster. We're not dealing with RPMs. We're dealing with just the speed. And it's traditionally way faster. So if you have an older computer and you want to upgrade, or you want it to be way faster, sometimes the best thing you can do is either put in a little bit more RAM, which is its own thing, or even better, trade out the hard drive. Because a lot of times you're reading files or you're booting up, and that's a function of two things, or three things that make that triangle. Your processor, your memory, which is not storage. Memory is not how much space and how many things you can put, or you'll see RAM, that's not how much stuff you can put on your computer. That's your hard drive. The hard drive, the SSD, that's your terabyte of space. That is what's going to get you the most in this spot because it's going to read from it. But that's the triad of what makes your computer faster. So if you can't change the processor, which is not likely, then it only leaves two other things you can change, and that's the RAM and the hard drive. A lot of times, if you have over 8 gigs of RAM, you're probably okay. If you have less than that, at least get up to 8 gigs and you'll get twice the speed. But if you want more than twice the speed, if you have a spinning hard drive, if you have the older style, getting an SSD, solid state drive, will normally speed up your computer more than half. When we did this for my friends at Wine Styles, we were able to get the boot up time from 2.5, 3 minutes to about 20 seconds. Just changing out the hard drive. When we added in the extra RAM, we went even faster. So we were able to boot up so fast that they weren't entirely sure that we actually rebooted. So some to think on there, just some extra data. So quick, like I said, recap of the tip, the original tip. If you run into a problem, create a new user account and give that a test. Whether it's a website, a service that you're using, or whether it's Windows or Mac. If you're having trouble, being slow, all that, things aren't working quite right, always try just spinning off a new username and password. Never hurts, you never know. And then you can always wipe it out. If I would have done that, it would have saved me a bit of time. Still happy I figured it out. The security company never did, so I'm going to be a little cocky there. But I should have been able to find that faster just by doing my normal test. So, and then the other thing is upgrade to SSD. If you can. Sometimes you can buy another 4 years of life sometimes on your computer just by doing that. That simple thing. RAM and hard drive, save a little bit. They're not expensive. You can catch them on sale quite a bit. You can always have long-term storage. You could take that older hard drive, move it to a second drive on there unless you're on a laptop. But if you're on a desktop, move it to, you can even put it into a little external. They sell little external packs where you can slide it in for about $40 and hooks up USB. And that'll allow you to long-term storage or put a backup of your computer over there. So you can reuse that drive. You don't care if it's slow now, it's not running anything. So those are your kind of two quick tips. One of the other questions that kind of came up was, with a printer. We have multiple things printing to it. This is why sometimes it's nice to get a network printer. I like having printers that have dual interfaces so I can always plug in USB. I'm a tech. I know things fail. So if the network fails, I can always grab a USB cable and plug it in. Don't get hung up on USB 3 on a printer. It pretty much doesn't hang out with it unless it has a media drive. USB 3 just has the blue interface in there and it can go in gigabits. Unless you're scanning, even then, unless you have media on them, which at that point you're at a $400 printer, that's not necessarily going to be needed. But try to get one that has a network jack or Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi can fail, but generally doesn't. And if it has a network, you can plug it directly in, Ethernet, and allow 2 computers or 3 computers to talk to it. I do like the Canons and HPs that support AirPrint, because if you are going to use an iPhone as opposed to an Android, then you can print to it without needing a third-party program. Otherwise, there are third-party programs that you can load up on your phone that allow you to print to your printers normally. Or you can load one up on a desktop. If you have a desktop that's always running, you can put it on there and it can show up as an AirPrint. But I'd rather just get it on there. I have a Samsung that I'm trading out to do the same thing. So I can have it on an HP that does that, AirPrint, or a Canon. I haven't decided yet. But with them, an HP, and it came in and it was using something called WSD. That's not bad. In fact, all it does is it It's something like Bonjour on the Mac side, and that it broadcasts and looks. It's how Windows kind of securely talks to it. The problem I have is when you put these things on a network and it does that and they jump around IPs, sometimes machines fail with that. That's why businesses don't do that. We use a print server and a static IP. But you don't have to do a static IP. A lot of times at home, your routers are doing something called DHCP reservation. So when in doubt, you can go into your router and you'll find a section that says DHCP reservation, and you can make sure that printer never changes. That's a nice little tip to do when you can, because then if the IP doesn't change, everything pretty much just stays running. So if you're doing it for business, if you don't know, ask your tech that you work with to set that printer to static or put a DHCP reservation in. You could ask them to set up an IP print as opposed to WSD, and that can be disabled. A lot of these printers come with so much stuff turned on that they are a slight security risk, from a business point of view. So you could turn extras at home. You're going to be okay. You don't have people coming in and sitting in the shop possibly scanning your network thinking that they're going to pull a fast one. But if not, that's just a quick tip. The other thing is inkjet or laser printer. That was one of the questions that came in. I'm going to tell you, I'm a big advocate of laser printers unless you're doing some very specific functions. So an inkjet, it means that it just takes ink that you put in as opposed to toner, and it sprays these little ink droplets in triads of color. CMYK, so cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Some of them have multiple layers, like one of my Epsons for photo, for my photo side has 3 types of grays: gray, light, light gray, black, photo black, matte black, cyan, light cyan, magenta, light magenta, and so on and so forth. Most inkjets aren't that way though, they're just the 4. And you pay for it, but they can only normally print anywhere from 200 to 300 pages. A laser printer normally averages around 2,000 prints. The toner costs sometimes twice as much as the ink, but you're getting 4 times the life, if not a little bit more. The other thing is, if you ever had an inkjet come out and you touch it, in the old days it'd kind of smear, or if you got it wet, it would bleed. Well, a toner doesn't work that way, a laser printer. What it does is as the paper comes through, so an inkjet comes through and it has these little heads and it just drops droplets at a micron level. So very, very, very small. It mixes them and drops them on at that very small droplet, that micron droplet layer, and multiple at the same time as it comes across. A laser printer takes it, and as the paper comes through, it charges it in magnetically, or heat charges, or statically, there we go. Electrostatically charges the paper as it comes through with an image you can't see, and then it drops the toner on it. And at that point, onto the imaging drum as it's charged, and then it fuses it with heat to the paper. It's not actually dropping any ink onto it, and that causes it to fuse pretty much instantly to the paper. So it cannot bleed, it's there, and it's not going to smear when you touch it. They tend to get better life, and they don't really cost much more. You can get a scanner, copier, all that stuff. Duplex, which means when you want to print both sides, it'll automatically flip the paper over for you, so you're not trying to go, well, which side should I load this on? And then you get that extra life of the print, or of the toner, 2,000 prints as opposed to 200. You get all that, and most of the time you can get a good color laser that does all of that stuff for around 300. You can get cheaper. You can get a black and white one if you don't need color for 150. You can get just a black and white printer if you don't need copier, scanner, all that stuff, for about 40, 50 bucks. And normally the toner is cheaper for those two. They're only like 30, so you're not spending much more. You can get color ones that are only about 99. It does about the same thing, and more life. Less stuff breaking, doesn't have ink pads that need to be replaced or any print head like that. So because of that, you normally get, and they're faster, 27 pages per minute as opposed to 18 maybe, which when you're printing a lot of stuff makes a big deal, especially from a business point of view. So if you're looking for one for your business, definitely think about going laser. It doesn't really cost more. It might look like a little bit more when you first buy it, but over the lifetime, it's better. The only caveat to that is if you're doing transfer work. If you're working in a creative aspect, or if you're working with photography, if you're doing photo prints, then no, inkjet, photo inkjet to be specific, like some of the Epson line or some of the Canon image graphs, that's different. They're putting down extra layers. Laser printers cannot equal the photo quality that an inkjet can at that point. For most people at home, that doesn't matter. Businesses especially, you're not printing a wall gallery like I would for my photography side, which is why I have lasers. And then for some of my photography work, I always send it to a lab. But for some of my own in portfolio work, if I'm going to slide into my portfolio folder, I use an Epson older 2400, but there's newer ones that are way nicer. And there's new Canon ones that maybe someday I'll grab and upgrade mine. But that's the caveat for it. Or if you're going to do like t-shirt transfers, I do not know if they make a laser version of that. I can't imagine there would be. You might be better off doing a Cricut or something like that and doing a vinyl transfer though. But if you're doing one of those, or if you buying or you like to do the scrapbooking where you're going to do the wet it and then transfer it, then you need an inkjet. But otherwise, LaserJet's the way to go from that point of view, or laser printer. So that's one of the questions that came through as I was working on the fact that they were having trouble with an ink pad. So Brother and Epson both had a thing where they had this little ink pad, and instead of you being in charge of when you want to replace your printer, instead they, and Epson stopped doing this, but Brother still does, have this little life cycle in there, this little ink pad absorber, but it says, hey, you've done 7,000 prints, so I just assume I'm full. There's no actual sensor in there that says I'm full. So it just says, I assume I'm full, I'm done. And you can't buy the part to replace that at Office Max, Home, or Best Buy, anything like that. You can't. Instead, you have to pay a service technician to come out, which normally would end up being more than the cost of a new printer. There is a way to do a code. If you Google search, instead of Google searching for replacing the ink absorber, look for resetting the ink absorber code. There is a maintenance mode that if you press and hold the menu, the home menu, for about 5 seconds, it'll take you to a maintenance menu. You hit the bottom blank button twice. You can put in a code. I believe it's 2864, or is it 286? No, it's 2864. You can put in your maintenance code, hit 2 to the right, hit up a bunch of times till you get to the option that says purge, and then you can select it, and it'll purge that option on there. And then you'll reset it. There's better 3-4 minute instructions on how to do it. I could create one, but really it's already out there. But look for reset instead of repair or replace. And that'll get you in that ballpark. If you get stuck, let me know. If you come across this, I'll find a link for you and send it, because I had to mess with it and reset it myself today for them, as we talked about going and finding, a laser printer instead. So that's something that kind of came up. Another fun tip that came up was, they got out of the business, should you run off the wireless that's built into your home router? I'm a big advocate of no. Only because they don't come with very much memory or resources inside of them. So I'd much rather have much more functionality and better stuff by taking that and making those home modems just a modem. I don't need you to be a firewall. I don't need you to be much of a router. I don't need you to do much of anything except for be a modem, because you're just not that powerful. If you're a single person at home and that's your only thing, great. If you've got a family, you have multiple things connecting, you're probably better off moving to the other. you get much better life. You don't have to do as many reboots then or resets. But one cool tip is I have some old devices. Let me see if I have one over here. No, I do not. It's over in the other drawer. I have an old Airport Express. The nice thing about keeping sometimes that old equipment is if you have a piece of equipment that can't go wireless, like I had with this video recorder before we jacked or made a wall jack for it, is I was able to take an old one and put it into what we call bridge mode. So almost every router, whether it's a big router or whether it's one of the little Airport Expresses, little tiny one, it can do something called bridge or wireless bridge, and that it will connect itself to a wireless and just become basically a wireless network card that you plug in via Ethernet, which Ethernet's just the normal thing that looks like a phone jack, just wider. And with that, we're able to repurpose and take a wired machine that didn't have built-in wireless and make it wireless. So sometimes that old equipment can be repurposed that way. And, why not? If it's hanging around. Now, like I said, we change it when you can, especially security system, might as well be wired. But that's just my little thing on there. But no, if you're out there and have a question, just remember you can post Q and then ask your question. Otherwise, probably making a bunch of sound on there as I do that. Otherwise, if you're catching this on the replay, you could still post Q and ask your question, or just write me on Glitch 2600 over there on Facebook. Otherwise, again, you can come find me over on YouTube by hovering over that QR code and with your smartphone, or you can just type in that link, live.glitch2600.com/YouTube, because I make it so difficult to find. It'll take you to our page till we get so many likes, 100 plus. I can't set up a vanity one for YouTube, so till I get there, that's what we got to use. But if you go there, like and subscribe, then you'll, see updates as we do them. We'll start simulcasting there. And if you have content and stuff you'd like us to cover, keep that in mind. We do these bits and bytes, and we will be recording more of those here very, very shortly. And again, we have the happy hour that we do at least once a week where we cover your craft beer fun questions. We'll be doing probably afterwards. I suspect we'll be doing one around 6:30, possibly, only because, one, I feel like we're going to the 4th of July, and I'd like to have a drink. I don't know if you guys want to have a drink too. And then we have a beautiful co-host, which means you don't have to keep looking at this mug. I mean, unless you're one of the ladies and you really just want, hi, how you doing? Well, unless you're one of the guys. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, that was creepy. Hopefully it gives everyone a good laugh. I keep joking around and Ryan Reynolds finds my feed. The wife might have a run for her money. I'm just kidding. She's pretty. She puts on a Deadpool outfit. Ryan will have a run for his money. Just saying. That's my way of making the Geek Out a little bit creepy. But let me know, do you like the Geek Out name? Do you want a different name? Obviously, Tech Tuesday wasn't working because we didn't want to be stuck to just Tuesdays. We do a lot of other stuff. But we like to kind of have this Q&A during the week. If you'd rather have us do this on the weekend, if you think 2 a week would be the way to go, let me know. Worst case is I'll say I'm a little too busy, or I will try to fit some in. Because really I'm just here to enjoy and help answer questions for you guys, so you don't have to pay or get stuck with sometimes texts that maybe are newer or don't have that background. And I would love to save you some money and help you out from that point of view. So come here, ask the questions, or if you're one of my geek friends and just don't want to keep answering your family's questions, send them through. My family comes on and asks questions, which is nice because I keep telling them, hey, why don't you wait till the show and ask? Which lets me answer them all in one space, which is pretty nice. But if you're a geek like me, you get asked a million questions, or you're not a geek and you just be the youngest in the family and they ask you a ton of questions because you grew up with us, so you must know, then send them on over. I'll answer their questions for you, and then you don't have to deal with it. So having said that, I'm not going to keep you guys around tonight. We might be doing a pinball one in the not too distant future. We might do some more even this weekend. Other than the happy hour, who knows? We might do an extra one on 4th of July, or we might do one on the day after, if only because from a happy hour point of view, I have some beer in the fridge that I don't mind drinking this week. So I'll work out extras to burn off those calories. Just keep in mind, we can answer those questions. I'm not an expert, but I know the right people, and we just love to help. So thanks for coming online. But if no one has any more questions, we're going to cut this one for tonight, and we'll catch you on the next one. Be sure to stick around 30 minutes, grab a drink, come hang out with us. All right? We'll talk to you later.